I'd like to call the January 20th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Tonight on the agenda, we have one public hearing, one letter of recommendation, two information reports, one site development plan, and one preliminary plat. Can I get a roll call of commission members, please?
Commissioner Helfrey.
Here.
Commissioner Cohn. Commissioner Clayton. Commissioner Depler.
Here.
Commissioner Depler is here via Zoom. Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Rubis.
Here.
Commissioner Boren.
Here.
Mr. Boren's also here via Zoom. Chair Beatty.
Here.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
And Mayor Garitano. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I get an approval of the minutes from December 1st, please? Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Councilman Marshall. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Does the Department of Planning have any opening comments?
No, sir, just other than Mr. Young is not available tonight, so Sarah Rutherford is acting as city attorney and she is via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Garitano had something he wanted to mention before we get started.
Yes, thank you very much and good evening to everyone here tonight, especially with the cold weather that we're having. I did want to just share some insight because I know we have a public hearing for tonight on a topic that may be of interest to some folks regarding data centers. And just so you are aware, we do not have any proposal for any data center before the city at this time. This is the city's motto of planning tomorrow, today. It goes back 30 years. Our city was founded where we developed a master plan and we also developed a town center plan. And so therefore with regulations, we're able to manage the growth of our city. So I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that because if you do have questions, we may not have answers because we don't have any proposal. We're just trying to be proactive rather than be reactive. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Eric, may I say something?
Sure.
So my name is Scott Jackson. I want to be full transparent. My company is a Fortune 500 company. We sell a lot into data center on the infrastructure like comm data, electrical equipment. My responsibility for the company is broadband and fiber optics, so interconnection, so long haul fiber to wherever. That does include data center. I don't know where this is going. Obviously, they're getting ahead of everything, but I want to be fully transparent with everyone. I may have to recuse myself if there's any action taken just from an ethical perspective, or maybe not, but I wanted everyone to know that. And if we're out in the hall and you want to ask me how things are built and what goes on in the world, I'm happy to give my 2 cents. It's my job.
Thank you. All right. So now we'll go into the public comment session. This is not the time for the public hearing, which is the data center, but anything else on the agenda, if you wish to speak, now is the time to speak on it. And if you would like, bring a comment card up to Travis, Mr. Newberry here, and he will call you in as it's your turn to speak. And as a reminder, if you're representing yourself, you have 3 minutes to speak. If you're representing a group, you have 5 minutes to speak. So, Mr. Newberry.
Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Ms. Link.
Lynn Link,
Better.
Ward 6. Many of us here tonight have been objecting to the Latitude N38 project since the summer of 2023. Density was just one of the many issues, along with lack of parking, asbestos abatement on existing structures, and even resident complaints on other Benton properties of poor quality and poor maintenance. Water runoff was also an issue, and the fact that the development's new proposal had an outflow of the detention areas emptying onto our new village green says a lot about what they think of our community. Since this project was first proposed, our city council has approved the luxury multi-story 188 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit mixed-use commercial space, allowing a reduction in existing per-unit parking requirements only about a block away. On appeal, less than a year ago, the developer told us that 55 was the minimum amount of units on the luxury villas and that he could have in order to make the numbers work. Evidently, that was less than truthful because he now proposes 10 less. You cannot justify allowing higher density by saying other nearby developments are already dense. Clearly, there is always a synergistic adverse effect when adding additional high-density development to an area, which should limit further development. Proper civic planning must consider and limit future developments to mitigate those effects on existing residents and our environment. All high-density development stresses the environment and existing infrastructure for the residents already living there. It's understated truth to say that not all development is beneficial to our community and that all development, especially development in which increases density and impermeable surface, has an adverse impact on our existing residents and our shared environment. Throughout Wildwood, we have seen the effects of development in the form of increased water runoff, erosion, sinking land, and sinkholes opening up, including an entire lake being drained in a little over a day. Having the vision to see the adverse effects of unchecked development 30 years ago, area residents made tremendous effort to incorporate so that those who are elected and appointed into our municipal offices could preserve the beauty of Wildwood and to protect our home from the developers who would be willing to destroy it just to make a profit. Countless residents complain about the direction that our city is taking. When you eventually vote on this, I ask that you reflect on who you are here to represent and what your authority and purpose are and the tremendous amount of effort it took to provide you with that authority. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mrs. Byrd.
Good evening. I'm Joan Byrd, and I'm the property owner and resident at 2725 Christie Avenue. And we are attempting to build a, go to Bendick Estates. And someone has asked that we have a wastewater treatment plant. And I'm really against that, as is evidenced by what has gone on at Big Chief, and they have that, and it smells terrible. I've raised my 5 children. My brother has raised his 4 children, all on this same property. We've always had septic tanks and well water, and we've never had a problem. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Basler.
Hello, I'm Tom Bosler. I'm also involved in the Bendick Estates property. My business partner, we are going to be the sales team representing the builder on that development, and we are also in favor of having individual septic systems. The sewage treatment facility is going to be unsightly. If that system goes down, it affects the other proposed 13 homeowners all at one time. The individual system seems to make a lot more sense. Our understanding is the soil is conducive to having individual septic systems, and we feel that will be in the best interest of the homeowners there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Hill.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Hill, Ward 1, also owner of JGH Building Group, representing Hills Hollow Estates. I'm just here to answer any questions you may have when we get to that part of the agenda.
Okay,
Thank you.
And the next speaker is Mr. Kraus.
Good evening, members of the commission. I'm Mike Kraus. My mother-in-law is Mrs. Byrd, who just spoke. She's the property owner for Bendick Estates. I'll be involved, obviously, with this project pretty deeply, and I'm here just to voice my opposition to a wastewater treatment plant. Certainly in favor of the individual septic systems per resident. residential structure. I have personal experience managing a small wastewater plant, and the wastewater plants that are smaller are actually more problematic than larger ones. In a lot of cases, the problem is that they don't get enough use. And so with variable use and residential application like this, I just foresee more problems than is probably necessary. And I also echo my mother-in-law's comments. It's unsightly, and everyone knows what sewer gas smells like. It's H2S. It's terrible. It smells like rotten eggs, and that happens when the bacteria that's put into those systems diminishes or dies. And the reason it dies is because of a lack of natural bacteria coming in through waste. In any case, I just wanted to make sure that we were able to be heard this evening, and you could hear my opinion on that. And I hope that you take that into consideration when you vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Miller.
Good evening. My name is Scott Miller. I live at 18951 Hart Road, and I'm here because I received a postcard that you're considering a small storefront for the nursery on St. Albans Road. And I just wanted to express my support for that store, and I don't have any problems with it. So you asked for input. There's your input. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Summers.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Summers, and we had the perfect lead-in, unplanned, as my family and I recently purchased that nursery on St. Albans Road, and our proposal is to use the property as it's been used for 70 years, including the storefront that was there. So that's my introduction in a nutshell. We're here for questions or comments.
Thank you for your comment.
The next speaker is Mr. Whalen.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Your Honor, members of the commission. I just wanted to offer just a quick word about the request for the
Name
Bendick
and
Estates.
address. I know who you are, but for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mike Whalen, 640 Thorntree Lane. Forgive me.
Thank you.
I just wanted to respectfully request that, number one, I'm here to answer any questions, and I would appreciate it if I got an opportunity to. We would like to offer the same structure that we did for our West Eden development with a couple of modifications to maybe manage the risk a little bit better of wastewater treatment individual systems to make sure that they're running properly. We would like to offer doubling our escrow that we did from about $2,600 to about $5,000 per unit to go into an escrow account managed by the homeowners association. And with West Eden, we require all of the homeowners to provide a proof of inspection and maintenance of their system every 2 years to the HOA. For Bendick Estates, we would like to propose that it's mandated, and we would like to centralize that inspection function and have the homeowners association contract with one waste treatment professional organization to inspect all the systems, to provide whatever maintenance is required, and to fund that maintenance out of that escrow. We feel like that more than manages and mitigates the risk of individual treatment systems, and is certainly a much better alternative than a single potential problems that could arise from a single point of failure that could occur with a centralized waste treatment system. It's also a lot easier for a homeowner association to manage. So love to talk about it more if we get the opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, if I could, just before I call the last speaker in the audience tonight here in person, if someone's online and wishes to speak during the general public comment session, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. Thank you. And the next speaker here in person is Mr. Hart.
My name's Rich Hart, 18721 Highway T. And I just want to say that the 55 acres they were proposing for a subdivision of 16 homes. I know that land probably better than anybody in St. Louis County. I farmed it, worked with my father, my grandfather, and since I'm 81, so it's not that 167 years, but actually owned that field for over 140, and I spent a lot of time in it. Number one, there's not going to be any building on the south side of the creek because it's just totally not there. You're not going to be building in the creek. So the Department of Agriculture always told us that land was basically 30 tillable acres. In that tillable acres are at least 2 springs that never get farmed or wet weather all the time. So you take that out of the equation. So now you're down to about 20 something acres and you're proposing 16 homes on that, which is way too dense for anything going on. Now they say that creek is not in floodplain. I can tell you it is. And our family spent days, including me. They were real anal about it. Every time a tree came down in that creek, it got cut out of there and it flowed. We chained in and cabled in cedar trees to keep the erosion down. There's like quite a few culverts that come underneath Highway T that run down through that field, and they're identified, and you can see where those springs are because there's never anything planted in them. It's just planted around it. You'll get stuck. Your equipment will get stuck when you get in there. So what I'm saying is that you're not looking at 55 acres. You're looking at about 28 that you could actually use. Then there's been archaeological digs there. Professors from Rolla, now it's S&T. It used to be Rolla School of Mines. They used to bring classes up there to professors. There's a lot of Indian burial grounds that I've always been told about, but it's always been a real glean for finding Indian artifacts. I didn't buy it at the time. I own everything on the other side of the highway, so I'm going to be the one most impacted to look at it. And I just think it's a beautiful valley. Why does people want to look at a bunch of asphalt shingles when they could be looking at a pretty nice valley? And I'm against it. And to support the Indian question, I've found a lot of things, but back when the property got sold out of my family,
1 minute.
There was some underground cable guy came to me and he said, we started to put in an underground cable and we ran into two Indian burial grounds, and he wanted to know what I knew about it. And I says, I don't know where they are. I've always been told they're there. And he says, I'm not fooling with it. We're pulling out. And that was the last I ever heard of it. So there is proof to this stuff. And I don't know how many culverts cross T underneath, but when you have a watershed that goes from 100, everything south of Hart Road all the way down comes through that field when it rains. It's a lot of water. Believe me, I know. So that's all I got to say. I don't think it's the right spot for what it is.
All right. Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the first speaker on Zoom is Ms. Henson.
Hello, everyone. Tracy from 2708 Questover Canyon Drive, Ward 6. I am sorry I can't be there in person. I was just nursing a wound on my horse. Anyways, I was also here to talk about the Lombardo home property development along Highway T. I recently met with a former DNR, Missouri DNR worker, and she talked about how the department is incredibly overfunded. All they really can do is like go and tell you some things. They don't have any funding or development to fix anything. With septic tanks close to that creek, which overflows, I'm very worried that we're going to have a stream that normally runs clear start to overflow with sewage, like something you'd see in the city. That area is a like he had mentioned, like the man before me mentioned, is a drain field. Like there's a lot of water that comes down it. We've had well-documented floods on that creek, but because it is unnamed, it puts us in sort of a limbo and at the mercy of planning and zoning, because an unnamed creek is kind of not really cared about by the Missouri Department of Natural Resources or Conservation. So because it's unnamed, it won't get any additional resources. I'm very worried of what septic overflow and other additional problems could cause along close to that waterway. In addition, we also have a risk here along our plane. When we have earthquakes, our ground is a little bit more unsettled because of our high water table here. For example, my sump pump in the basement runs every 5 to 10 minutes, even in conditions like this. When we have an earthquake, we feel it a little more than everywhere else because our ground is so unstable. I watch as my pipes move, and we've had to redig our pipes multiple times now since I've only lived here for 5 years. But with the drastic flooding we've had, our ground moves. I'm very worried about something along without proper research what something in that ground on the other side of the water, the other side of the creek will do, because my side's more stable than the other side, and the other side has to be, you know, much more loose. I can tell from my pasture, but my pasture doesn't have anything under. It's just a barn on top of anything with no piping. So please do consider us and our unnamed creek as something that could be a potential problem for erosion and overflow, and something that Missouri doesn't have money to fix. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker on Zoom doesn't have a name identified, but I will promote them in. They'll just accept the prompt.
All right. State your name and first you're muted, but unmute yourself.
Okay, my name is Catherine Bendick Sutton, and my Joan Bird is my aunt, and I just want to talk about the Bendick Estates property. I just wanted to reiterate what my aunt has already said, and the rest of my family, that we have occupied that property as a family for over 100 years. There's 2 properties remaining on this land, one of which is my childhood home. And I lived there for over 20 years. I grew up, we had individual septic and we had well water, and we never had an issue. And I just want to reiterate that I'm adamantly opposed to the centralized water treatment plant because of the smell and the unsightliness of it. And that's all.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, if you'll just give me one moment. Mr. Larson will be next.
Brian Larson, 2901 Country Point Court. Here to talk again about the subdivision along Highway T, and to reiterate what I said last time, as well as what Tracy just alluded to. I'm very concerned about the septic tank locations. I also think that a central treatment plant may be a problem. So I'm concerned both about the density of the homes and as was alluded to, because much of the land is not suitable for the homes themselves, including what's south of the creek, and because of the creek itself and in the spring and all the water that is there, which also makes it very unsuitable for some of the septic tanks that would be in each of those those lots. So that in general, just that's the biggest concern. I don't know that there's a good solution on either doing the individual septics or a centralized treatment plant in that space. That's pretty much all I have.
All right. Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the department does not have any additional speaker comments for the general public comment session, and is not seeing any additional hands raised on Zoom.
Sounds good. All right. In that case, we will go ahead and close the public comment session and start the public hearing. In the city of Wildwood, public hearings are truly intended to accept comments and questions concerning this posted item. Since this request is being held at a public hearing, no action is planned on this item tonight, and consideration of it is to be taken no earlier than the February 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This approach ensures the members of the commission will hear all opinions before taking any action. The city's Department of Planning will address the comments, questions, and concerns that are raised tonight and include them as part of its formal recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anyone in attendance at City Hall tonight wanting to speak should fill out a speaker's card and leave it with Mr. Newberry. Those in attendance via the Zoom webinar platform should use the raise hand feature to indicate you wish to speak at the hearing. A team member will add you to the list of speakers, which will then be communicated to me as chair, and I will invite you to speak when it is your turn. The public hearing process is outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, which can be found on the table at the entry area to the council chambers. The commission will allow all parties adequate time to present their position. As outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, those individuals representing themselves will be allocated 3 minutes to speak. Speakers who are designated as a group speaker representing a group of more than 5 individuals will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. In addition, information on these items can be found on the city's website at www.cityofwildwood.com. The commission would like to thank you for your cooperation and participation at tonight's hearing. All right, so flip back. All right, so PZ 1-26, Mr. Newberry.
PZ 1-26, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, Wildwood City Hall, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri 63040. A request to consider amendments to Chapter 415 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood to regulate and restrict the use of land for operation of facilities commonly referred to as information technology and data processing facilities or data centers, and establishing specific performance standards to address potential adverse impacts, including noise pollution, utility infrastructure demands, visual aesthetics, and environmental footprints, and other matters relating to the general health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city, and other matter related thereto, all wards.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I'd like to first reiterate what Mayor Garritano mentioned. The City of Wildwood, via its Department of Planning, has not received any inquiries relating to data centers. However, it's very difficult not to turn on the television and watch the news, pick up a magazine or newspaper, or review anything on the internet where data centers are not mentioned. Tonight, there's hearings across the region relating to data centers. And so it is a use that must be addressed in the opinion of the department before it is upon us versus, in this case, being proactive. In preparation of tonight's public hearing, the department did prepare a primer for discussion purposes. In that particular item, the department does recognize that data centers do have a place in modern society based upon artificial intelligence, or AI. However, those locations, in the opinion of the department, may not be anywhere in Wildwood, and therefore, if there are locations, we need to identify them and direct such to them. In the primer, the department does note that it appears that data center developers are looking for large tracts of ground in or near appropriate utility networks. The department does note in that primer that our non-urban resident district does have a great deal of larger tracts of land that are nearby or abutting to the utility networks. However, the department does believe that since 1995, when the non-urban district became the non-urban resident district, protections exist. However, those same protections we thought that existed for telecommunications, towers, home-based businesses, and others were ultimately whittled away or reduced by the federal and state governments. So to be, again, proactive in this regard, the Master Plan Committee that is updating that document thought it imperative that a public hearing be held by the Planning and Zoning Commission and that changes or regulations be added to address this matter sooner than later. The department would note that the city does have an industrial area. It's identified in our master plan as part of the 4 major land use categories. It is the Wildwood portion of the Chesterfield Valley. As you know, the city of Wildwood has maintained that industrial character, approving fixed supply services, recently Kurtz Landscaping, and many smaller businesses off of Centaur Road. The department has been advised by the city attorney that prohibiting them outright may be difficult, but however, we can regulate them to the point to address the concerns that have been identified relative to noise pollution, utility infrastructure demands, visual aesthetics, environmental footprints, and lighting in many ways. So tonight, it is the first step in this process to ensure that the non-urban resident district areas of Wildwood, the rural areas, are protected, and in the opinion of the department, direct any potential data center to the industrial area of the city. And as part of that, ensure that the process, whether it be the M3 plan district with a conditional use permit or the M3 plan district by onto itself, have enough protections to ensure that if such has to be considered, it is considered in the light of the general health, safety, and welfare of our residents and property owners. There will be a great deal of information developed over the course of the next few weeks. Our city attorney, John Young, has firsthand experience with these. As I mentioned, there are hearings going on in St. Charles County tonight and Warren County relating to this particular item. And they are dealing with them in sort of their not proactive approach, but reactive approach. And certainly, again, we are here to head it off and do the best we can to preserve Wildwood as more of a natural character community than one that is populated by data centers and other uses that are not necessarily appropriate for this community. So again, tonight with the public hearing, Mr. Newberry, Ms. Ripito, and I will be taking the comments down. We'll address the comments as best we can. And certainly when we prepare a recommendation report, we'll do our very best to limit impacts of these types of uses in the city. If there are any questions at this time from the commission members, the department would be glad to try to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Commissioner Helfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich, for that explanation. As you know, I was one of the people that was very vocal about, let's get ahead of this. So in order to prepare for the meeting tonight, I watched a lot of videos and news and did a lot of research. And so as you say, you're getting ready to prepare for the coming weeks. I had some notes that I was hoping that we could address. When I look at the pros and cons of this, pretty basically the pros of these come out to money. No big surprise there. The cons were quite extensive. And so a couple questions I would like addressed when you do the research, if you wouldn't mind, would be if we can keep them to the industrial center, that would be fantastic. And then if we do, can we keep it? One of the complaints that I heard over and over again from people in towns with data centers was the constant hum, because there's so much energy that's being used, the backup generators and HVA systems and stuff. So if there's a way that we could somehow put a buffer around them to where they're not within a certain amount of feet or miles of people's homes. And as far as the infrastructure, I don't know how you address that. Another problem is that these data centers seem to pay for their own electric use, but they don't pay for the upgrades necessary for the infrastructures. The little guy pays for that. And I am a little guy and I don't want to pay for that. So if I don't know if we can address that or not. And then one of the questions that I have is if it gets to the point where the industrial area of Wildwood no longer has space available, then what? I mean, is it just that's it? It's done? Because we work so hard to making sure that homes aren't built on ridge lines and, we're protecting our resources and we're having conversations this evening about creeks and, watersheds and all those things. I would sure like them to not be able to say, well, there's no room in the industrial area. Let's go ahead and see what we can do and have somebody in the state government or the federal government then tell us what's best for us. So I don't know how we can address those things, but those are the things I was hoping that maybe you could address when you do your research. Thank you.
Certainly, and not at a scale of a data center. From the photographs and information that the department's reviewed, they're generally pretty substantial developments with multiple buildings, a lot of impervious surfaces, et cetera. But the city has already set a pattern relative to certain uses. The first was medical marijuana sales. And as you recall, there was a lot of input from our residents and others about not having them in town center. And so we accommodate them in the industrial area of Wildwood. Same for vape shops and tattoos parlors. We moved them down to the industrial area. More recently, we've now added just general sales of marijuana. They are a considered use in the industrial area of Wildwood. And early on, we put sexually explicit businesses down in the industrial area of Wildwood. So I think in the past, we've done this. We've offered an available location in the community to accommodate that type of use. According to our city attorney in past discussions with the Planning and Zoning Commission, he says, in general, you can't prohibit them, but you have to provide a location for them. I think our industrial area will achieve that. Certainly, the department is leading toward creating a conditional use in the M3 planned industrial district. So remember, the M3 planned industrial district is a site-specific ordinance with specific conditions tailored to the potential use as submitted by the developer of the project. The conditional use permit gives us extra authority because the conditional use permit requires the burden of the authorization not falling on the city, but onto the developer. The developer has to basically say, this meets your criteria. The city doesn't have to do that. And that's a big distinction because it gives us the ability to stand back and view their rationales, not necessarily us developing rationales why it should or shouldn't be there. Mr. Lee and I had a conversation with Mr. Young, our city attorney, this morning, and at the last legislative session in Missouri, they actually passed a Senate bill that requires data centers to carry the cost of any utility upgrades, not the other consumers or customers of that utility provider. So the states kind of address that issue for us. And from the perspective of the department, over the course of time, particularly in town center, we've said we have 3 convenience stores with gas pumps and car washes. And when we updated the town center plan first in 2008 and subsequently in 2018, we said that was enough. There are locations, there are a use, and we don't need to provide more. So I'll lean on that as we move forward. It's not to say we have to perpetually provide a location. We provided a location if somebody submitted, got approval and developed, well, that's to their benefit, not yours. Just because you're late to the game doesn't mean we have to accommodate you elsewhere. And we'll work on that very hard. Saying all of that, it all could fall by the wayside if the federal and state governments step in and say, you've got to accommodate them and do what they've done with telecommunications and home-based businesses and everything else that you all deal with on a day-to-day basis when we have those things come forward. But we'll do our best, and thanks for the input.
Mayor Garitano?
Yeah, I do have some comments, but I'd like to just check to see, Chair, do you want to let the public go ahead speak first and then we can have discussion, or?
I'm fine doing it either way, so.
Yeah, let's have members of the public speak and
Okay.
then we can certainly comment afterwards. Thank you.
All right.
With that, Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Ms. Link.
Lynn Link, Ward 6. Effective restrictive municipal codes and strict penalties, which must be severe enough to deter even trillion-dollar companies, along with enforcement, enables local governments to protect its citizens. The Missouri Supreme Court has already confirmed municipal authority to deny conditional use permits for any reason. Many municipalities and states are in the process of taking measurements to limit or prohibit data centers, primarily through their ordinance or law on air, sound, and light pollution. Because of our unique rural nature, public lands, and thousands of households on restrictive ordinance, especially limiting pollution, electric and water consumption, is imperative. In addition to noise and light pollution, data centers are increasingly associated with health risks for both their workers and those living near them, from emissions linked to cancer, respiratory, and cardiovascular disease, along with water contamination of heavy metals and forever chemicals. According to OSHA, their cooling towers have even been linked to Legionnaire's disease. Data centers consume massive amounts of water for cooling systems to keep computers from overheating. Most experts say that water consumption from data centers is grossly underestimated, as well water consumption is not measured by an outside source. According to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute, smaller and medium-sized data centers can consume as much water as a town of 10,000 people, while larger centers can consume up to 5 million gallons a day, which is the water consumption of a town of 50,000 people. In an area using municipal water, this means dramatically lowered water pressure and higher water bills for area residents. In rural areas, where the data centers use well water, massive consumption of water results in reduced or depleted aquifers, concentrating existing toxins in the groundwater, resulting in poisoned or emptied wells. Data centers provide very few long-term jobs. Proponents will tell you that using closed loop or oil cooling systems can reduce water reduction up to 70%. Even if that were true, that would mean that the data center would still use 1.5 million gallons or more of water per day. According to the Electrical Power Research Institute, Virginia's data centers consume 26% of their state's electricity. The higher consumption forces power companies to increase their infrastructure to avoid grid failures. The PMJ, who manages the grid for 67 million East Coast residents, warns that it may have to implement power outages during periods of extreme cold or heat. As most receive substantial tax abatements, the best way to keep our residents safe is not to be using our tax dollars for corporate welfare. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Ms. Canby.
Hi, I'm Tracy Canby. I live in LaSalle Woods, been in Wildwood about 10 years. Like Ms. Helfrey decided to do my homework and research this because unfortunately my husband's out speaking in Franklin County as we're affected by that one as well. We have some property out there. So the more we read, the more we didn't like, the noise, the drag on the utilities, the wildlife was something that really concerned me. And then, as Ms. Link said, the negative impacts on the health of the residents. Money was the only positive that I found. Everything else was a negative. I feel like Wildwood has set the bar high. It's been that way since I moved here. That's one of the reasons I'm here. The green space, the wildwood, or the wildlife, it's a good place to raise families. And where we live in the woods, it's quiet. We like it that way. We want it to stay that way. I've heard from a lot of people that live near these things, what they say about the decibels is not what happens. My neighbor had to get rid of her rooster because he crowed too loud. And somebody came out and measured the decibels and said it was a noise violation. Wildwood sets the bar high. So I feel like this shouldn't be any different. As Ms. Link said, restrict, restrict, restrict. I don't think Wildwood is a place for a data center at all. But if we can relegate it to the industrial areas and keep it away from our homes, preserve our property value, preserve our health, preserve our wildlife. I mean, that's what I love about living here. That's where I think we need to be. So I just came out to kind of take the temperature of my community, see where we're at. I want to be involved. I want to help. I'll help speak out against it, but I also want to be educated on what the data center brings and what other people think the positives are. So that's why I'm here. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Cooper. Thank you, Mr. Cooper passed. The next speaker is Ms. Lopiccolo.
Hi, folks. Hi, Mr. Chair and Mayor Gaetano. I can't say it right. Mayor Gaetano
There you go.
and council. I'm happy to be here this evening, and I want to thank the mayor right off because I just found out about this about a day ago, so I haven't had a long time to prepare. I would have had much more info if it had longer. But I want to thank you for responding right away on Facebook. That was amazing. And it was very effective, and I liked what you put in the letter. It was good. I have concerns. I do understand the pro is money, but if you have money and you don't have your health and your way of life, does the money matter? Okay. So I would like to bring up some other points. I don't know about you, but I really can't afford an increase in property taxes, sales tax, utility bills like water, electric, natural gas, sewer, wastewater. And then there's the problem of the noise pollution. You were asking about buffering. I'm not an expert in this area yet, but from what I've read, I don't think you can buffer it. It's not like that. It doesn't travel like that, but I'm sure you could probably maybe help a little bit, but in general, no, not really. And then there is an increase with things like tinnitus with it. Who wants tinnitus? Anybody here have tinnitus already? It's a horrible thing. Horrible, right? Okay, you wouldn't wish it on anybody. There's an increase in our financial responsibility if this goes through. We'll need more police, more EMTs, we'll need more fire, all kinds of different things. The aesthetics of Wildwood will never be the same. And the even feel of it. I don't know if anybody's sensitive enough to notice it, but when you start out at maybe 141 in Manchester and you drive out Manchester Road, I can feel the energy is much better and cleaner out here. Anybody else notice that? The whole area is calmer. Okay, so general health will be affected. It may lower taxes. Lower the property value, I meant to say, I'm sorry. We're also looking at an increase of risk of fire and electrical hazard, danger to human life, animal life, the ecosystem, and property. And I feel so sorry for the Mountain Franklin because they're battling tonight. They want to put the data center next, 5 minutes, I have a coalition. They're battling, putting it next to the nature reserve. The nature reserve moved out there like 100 years ago to get away from this type of stuff. And now they're battling that. Okay, there could be power outages. Well, what do you think is going to happen with the power outages? All you people here that decided or let a smart meter in your home, what happens with those? They can flip the switch and turn your power off. I opted out, okay? They can turn it off and eventually it's been in the newspapers. They plan on raising all your rates depending on what time you use your electricity. But they probably also foresaw about the data centers and they can flip you off whenever they want. I didn't mean the pun. Okay, sorry. The mere presence of data centers opens you up to a possibility of, well, data breaches and let's just say other stuff. I don't want to go too dark here. The EMF increases diseases like cancer, especially gliomas of the brain, which are absolutely horrendous. Sleep dysregulation, anxiety, fatigue, oxidative stress, cognitive decline, DNA damage, variation of heart rate. I get 5 minutes. Is that what you said?
Joe.
I have more than 5. Correct.
All right, then 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm going. Okay, dysregulation, anxiety, fatigue, oxidative stress, cognitive decline, and so forth. There can be waterborne diseases. I think somebody else mentioned that, like Legionnaires. You've got contaminated water cooling off nasty systems, and then where is that water going to? There'll be an increase probably in traffic. So we already tried to vote down having another highway go through here, right? Well, you would need that if the data center is built. You'll have an increase in the draining of our water sources. What about people who live off of a well? It's going to literally suck Wildwood dry. Okay. Here's my thoughts for the council, because you're all human beings and probably have homes and families that you love. Okay, if you go forward with something and you guys don't do due diligence, people that are harmed physically with their health or things catch on fire, whatever happens, they could come back and sue the council and the city of Wildwood. And there's been cities that have already gone bankrupt over that. It's not funny. Nobody wants our city to go bankrupt or to give you guys in some kind of peril. If you can have the applicant show that they're following the federal law, the NEPA and the FCC specs to prove that this will not pollute the environment. And can they please provide anywhere in the United States after 5 years after a data center being built that it did not cause any harm to the grid, the ecosystem, humans, and other life forms? You really kind of want to put that maybe in the ordinance to protect you. Make them do safety research and document everything that it's fine to go before you guys ever commit to any of it. I would be changing ordinances. You have a right to do so, right? Yes? No? Well, do it. Protect yourselves. Okay? So anyway, I love Wildwood. I love my country. I love God. I love Wildwood. And I hope Wildwood remains beautiful like it is. I hope a year from now, I still say I love Wildwood.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before calling the last speaker again, that I have here in the council chambers, I'll again instruct that if someone wants to speak on Zoom, please use the raise hand feature. The next speaker here in person is Mr. Baker.
Hello, Stephen Baker, Ward 4. I have worked in IT for decades, and I have been in data centers. I have seen what they do. There's a lot to be considered in doing this. But one of the things that I don't hear a lot about is what happens if you incur the ire of some of these companies that want to have a data center in your community? Are you prepared to have an adversarial vendor working with you? These would be the people like Meta and others that could say, oh, we don't like you today. We're going to turn you off. We're going to take your data. So as you're making your plans, consider what you have to do in order to insulate yourselves from an adversarial vendor. I'm not going to delve too deeply in all the other subjects, but there's a lot of negatives that come along with the data center. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, we do have a speaker with their hand raised on Zoom, Mr. Larson. Just give me a moment.
Brian Larson, 2901 Country Point Court, to speak about the data center issue. As the previous speaker just alluded to, I am also an IT professional and have worked in data centers for many, many decades, about 35 years. So I have some experience with both what they're like, what the impacts are, and of course the growing need with AI. I think essentially there is an issue of, NIMBY, not in my backyard, but also specifically in Wildwood, we have some unique challenges. And so I wanted to speak to those. I do recognize that legally we may need to provide spots similar to what we talked about, and of course, probably the industrial area would be that spot if we had to provide them. However, we need to consider a couple key things that were mentioned. How our water was mentioned, but I believe that power is, that wasn't emphasized enough. I want to note that Labadie power plant is the second dirtiest power plant in all of the US, based on, if you look at carbon dioxide, or it's near the highest in, I think it's the highest in sulfur as well. And it's doesn't have any of the modern pollution controls on it. So pushing that power plant further will have direct impacts on the Wildwood community. It's cheap power, but it's very, very dirty power. In addition to the water issue being near the river and in areas that are near flooding is another issue in terms of the water, extreme water use of data centers. I recognize they have to be somewhere. I don't think that our city is a good fit, however, for them. That's all I have.
Oh, all right. Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the department has not received any additional speaker cards here in the council chambers, and no one during Mr. Larson's speaking raised their hand as well on Zoom.
Sounds good. All right. Any other comments from the commission?